back when we used to think Adam and Eve were real people. You know, but they fell. They took hold of the fruit that they weren't supposed to. They broke God's rules. And we are just helpless, hapless fools following the same path, and woe to us. I love Jonathan Edwards, one of the earlier Great Awakening American preachers. "O sinner, consider the fearful danger you are in. It is a great furnace of wrath, a wide and open bottomless pit, full of the fire of wrath that you are held over in the hand of God, whose wrath is provoked and incensed as much against you as against many of the damned in hell. You hang by a slender thread with the flames of divine wrath flashing about it, ready at any moment to singe it and burn it asunder." You see what I mean? It's an interesting story. You are a sinner, you're hopeless, you're helpless, you're held over this pit of wrath by this very thin thread, and you got to figure if you do something wrong, you know, well, you're just going to let it drop. We sort of wait for that almost. Well, that story has formed a great many of us. A little too much. Dangerous. Trouble is, it's also partly right. Isn't it? We human beings really do fall short. We don't do the things we know from the inside out that we are called to do. We don't take the steps that we'd even like to take. I mean, oh, how I identify with the Apostle Paul when he says the very thing that I don't want to do, I do, and the very thing I want to do, I don't do. Can anybody relate to that? Go ahead, raise your hand, because everybody in here can. You know, there is a sense in which human beings do fall short. And some of it's genetic. I mean, some of it is really genetic. I mean, you know, try and remain faithful. I mean, you've got genetics working against you all the time. At least men do. You know, it just doesn't. Evolution demands that you're able to get your seed out to as many women as possible. You know, it's built into us somehow to be unfaithful or to grab from things because, you know why? We eat too much sugar? Well, we needed it and craved it, and there wasn't much around. So every time we could get our hands on it, we jammed it down. But now we're craving it beyond health. It's kind of built in, and then, you know, society. We feed one another. We deal with one another. Right? So that I'm fascinated by the fact that I consider myself a pacifist. Right? I work pretty hard at being a pacifist. I know that it's not an easy road to hoe, but it is remarkable to me how quickly I can think war is appropriate when it's in the social air. Absolutely remarkable to me how my mind can be changed by the people around me. I mean, we're broken and helpless in many ways. The story has some truth to it. Maybe that's because the closest thing to the truth is, you know, you get that lie, and the closer you can get to the truth, the more moving it tends to be. Yeah, we fall short. My wife and I argue about this word sin and whether or not we're helpless. And what I say to her is, yes, it's entirely possible that we will be able to break out of this and reach to some new moment. But by the time we've done that, we will no longer be Homo sapiens. We will have evolved into something else because biologically, we do seem stuck. But here's where the stories diverge. The stuck business. And Adam and Eve were stuck. Stuck as the people who reach out and grab the fruit, but not in Matthew's story. And this is the reason Matthew wrote the story. Matthew didn't write to tell you that Jesus was a cool guy, perfect, and you can't be. The entire Gospel of Matthew, and we're going to be dealing with this week after week until Easter, was written to describe humanity with God in it, working through it. Now, Jesus isn't some miracle man and you're rotten. No. No, Jesus is living with the light of God within him. And so are you. The reason you can make the choice to evolve and grow beyond yourself is because the power of God that has animated this creation, driven it forward for 13.7 billion years, is working in your life too. You are absolutely not stuck where you are, absolutely not helpless, hapless, unable to make the right choices. And the whole reason is you are imbued with the creative force that has brought nature, evolved human beings, evolved animals to this point. We can do something new while relying and expecting that God to be with us. Ask anybody in AA. They'll tell you it happened. The power and the strength of God that lives within us, and that's the story that we need to live with. A story that makes us responsible for living out that Spirit's call, to living out the prompting to become more than we expected to be, to get beyond our biology, beyond the social constrictions, to keep going that one step forward, advancing the ball. And now, with that story firmly in our hearts, far away from the sinner you're rotten, then we look at temptation and test quite differently. Instead of an opportunity to be held over the flames, we view it as an opportunity to take a next step forward, to be a part of creation's promise and process. Each time the temptation or the test comes, it continues to form our character and build it up instead of building it down. Years ago, I was depressed. That's putting it mildly. I was, 18. I'd left the church. I didn't know where I was going. And I saw a psychiatrist for a time back then, and he said something interesting to me because we had defined my thinking, my feelings about the way things were going as kind of being neurotic. All involved with my upbringing and so on and so forth. Well, so he told me what the cure for neurotic behavior is. And I've told you, right? The cure for neurotic behavior is non-neurotic behavior. It's astonishingly simple. So we make a choice, instead of spiraling down, where we feel like, oh, I made a bad choice. I feel bad about it. Oh, I'll make a bad choice again and again. Instead of that, we have that one moment when we turn the spiral upside down. We make the good choice and we realize that we have the power of God living within us to make those choices. It's an opportunity when you have a hurdle to jump over, an opportunity to become more than you would imagine to be. It is an opportunity for any child that deals with attention and hyperactive symptoms, an opportunity to allow them to grow and become wonderful. And you have that opportunity too, just the way Eve in the story reached out, grabbed that fruit, became an independent human being, and took a first step towards connecting and becoming whole with God. It got real at that moment. It got close. That's the good news of this text, of the entire Gospel of Matthew. From now until Easter, we will focus on the ways in which we can develop and grow because the Spirit that powers and drives creation lives in each one of you. It's time to tell a different story. Time to tell it here and embrace the joy and excitement of a new life. And time to tell that story everywhere we go.